What is up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the All About How podcast from growingau.com, where it's not about if, it's all about how. I am your host, John Knott. So glad to have you here listening today. We have one heck of a episode for you, really action-packed, value-packed. If you are into social media marketing, if you are into growing your presence, your business, your brand, whatever it is you're doing on social media, if you want to grow your follower count, if you want to grow your subscribers, if you want to grow the amount of people that are liking, viewing, sharing your content, this is the podcast episode for you. So we're going to go ahead and roll the intro and just jump right into it. Let's do it. Thanks for listening. This is All About How. Here we go.
It's all about how in 2020 we're going to leave the world a better place than we found it.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the intro. I'm pretty proud of it. I'm excited to be using that on our podcast episodes. One thing I do need to say really quickly is that this is the first installment of the All About How 365-day podcasting experiment, where we are going to be posting a podcast every single day for a year to answer the simple question of, does more content get you more followers? We are aware that more content is going to get us more views. That's just statistically probable. We understand that, but we want to know, if we post more content consistently every day for a year, is that going to grow our follower and ultimately our influence on social media, on podcasting platforms overall with our brand? So that is the question that we're looking to answer with the 365-day podcasting experiment. Does more podcasts, does more content equal more followers, more influence, and more awareness? So that's the question we're answering. If you're here today on day one, I'm so glad to have you here. I hope to see you back here in 364 days where we're taking a look at the results. I'm pretty excited for it, and I'm excited to see what the next year is going to have for us. But as far as today's episode is concerned, we're going to be talking about the one tip that is absolutely going to explode your social media accounts in 2020. This tip that we're going to be talking about today is going to completely negate the negative effects of all the other social media accounts that have a whole bunch of followers that are taking away the attention from your account. This is going to completely negate all of that today and allow you to be successful on social media in 2020. The information in the theory that we are using in today's episode is from a podcast called Starting Greatness by Mike Maples Jr. That's Maples Jr., called Starting Greatness. It's essentially a podcast where he talks to a whole bunch of highly successful people in different highly successful fields and talks about their strategies for success and how they made it. And on the first episode of his podcast, Starting Greatness, he talks to Andy Radcliffe, the starter of Wealthfront Capital. It was a really incredible podcast. It's about an hour long, and I probably listened to it about 5 times total. It really was just incredible and eye-opening. And what they talk about in that podcast is a term called product market fit. And essentially what product market fit is, and I'm going to keep it pretty short here because honestly, I'd rather you go listen to them talk about product market fit for the simple fact that you can listen to me, someone who understands it in theory, or listen to someone who's applied it in practice for their entire career. The podcast is incredible. I definitely highly recommend you go listen to it. But anyway, to give a quick synopsis, product market fit is essentially aligning startups with the desperate market that needs the product, content, or whatever it is that they are producing. So in our case, we're going to be talking about the content that we're producing on social media, because when they refer to product market fit in this podcast episode, they talk about how it's been used by a whole bunch of startup companies that are now household names, right? So we're talking about Facebook, we're talking about Airbnb, we're talking about Uber, we're talking about, even if you're into Shark Tank, you probably heard of the Squatty Potty. I mean, that, let's be honest, that is product market fit just by definition. They found someone who was desperate for their product and then marketed to that desperate group of people. So product market fit is all about that. It's about finding the people who need your product. What problem are you solving? What solution do you offer to people who need a solution to their problem? Also, I will say we do talk about product market fit on our blog post. So go ahead and feel free to check that out if that is what you're into. But anyway, how does product market fit apply to what it is we're talking about today? Obviously, product market fit has worked for, Facebook, it's worked for Uber, it's worked for Airbnb, but does it just stop at highly successful businesses and publicly traded companies? And I think we need to take the idea of product market fit and apply it to every social media account that we are trying to grow. So that's what we're going to be talking about today and how to do that. One of the biggest problems with social media in 2020, and if you look up online how to grow on social media in 2020 or just how to grow on social media, most likely you're going to come across people who are complaining about that there are so many millions of accounts with hundreds of thousands to millions of followers, and that it's just impossible to get any space, any influence, to have anyone seeing your content, not to mention the fact that new algorithms on Instagram and SEO changes on YouTube and stuff like that have just made it almost seem impossible to grow. But I'm here to tell you that is my belief, and it's the belief of the entire growing AU essentially marketing strategy, that if we use product market fit, we will probably negate the negative effects of all of those highly successful brands that are essentially hogging all the attention, if you will, because product market fit will essentially make us no longer in direct competition with those brands. And I want to explain this through an example here today. So let's say, for example, that you wanted to start a photography page on Instagram and YouTube. And what you wanted to do was you wanted to post a whole bunch of pictures that you took, and you also want to post like tips and tricks videos of how to be better as a photographer and at photography. Okay, now, is that going to be intrinsically successful? The idea sounds like it would be, but I think it's not going to take a lot of searching to find that there are people in the photography space that have millions and millions and millions of followers. So basically, it comes down to, why would anybody watch you when they could watch the people that they've been watching for years who have 4 million followers? It's kind of a harsh reality. I don't like hearing it any more than you do, trust me, but it is the kind of the truth, and I feel like it's better for us to accept that truth and find the best ways to deal with that rather than just trying to pretend that that truth doesn't exist. So what we need to do is effectively make it that we can now produce, for example, photography content and not be in direct competition with somebody like Peter McKinnon, who has 4 million something followers on social media and on YouTube. So how do we do that? We need to find the need within the photography genre that has not been fulfilled. And I will just clarify real quickly, the principle that we're talking about here can be applied to any market space. We're just using photography as the example. So, for example, success in photography tips and tricks, that's been done time and time again by highly successful people who are still doing it. That they're the standard. That's where people are going to go. So what you need to do as the new brand owner, for example, you need to go and find the place in photography, the style, maybe it's the gear, maybe it's just something that's not being done. It's a market that hasn't been tapped into that people want to see. So an example we're going to use in this video is, maybe you decide that you're going to do a entire page wrapped around nighttime urban photography on your smartphone. And this is the example that we use in the blog post. Maybe because no one is doing a lot of nighttime urban photography on the smartphone. So you go out there, you see that no one's really doing this. This is something you can do. So you take your smartphone, you go out to your city, you take pictures at night, and you make an entire, brand essentially that's around that. So you put out some awesome Instagram content, your pictures, you post your YouTube videos, maybe some vlogs, tips and tricks videos, editing, stuff like that. And there you go. Now you've started to build a brand. And next thing you know, everyone that has wanted to see nighttime urban photography specifically on the smartphone now has somebody to go to, and they have a new standard. But why would that be successful? Is there enough people who want to do nighttime urban photography on the smartphone? Well, this is the research that you would have to do if this was something that you were interested in doing. But let's just look at it in theory, right? There's probably a lot of people out there who are into photography. It's really gained popularity in the last couple years, like mainstream popularity anyway. And there's probably a lot of people out there who are into photography that aren't paying for $5,000, $10,000 DSLRs, mirrorless cameras, and other professional gear. And all they have to do and use is their smartphone. But so much of YouTube's content when it comes to photography is centered around the most professional gear, red cameras, high-end DSLRs, and stuff that there's probably a majority of people that aren't buying. So when they watch their videos, it's cool because it's photography, but it's somewhat, removed because they know for a fact that they may feel like they will never be able to get that content just for the simple fact that they don't have the type of gear. But if you go out and you use something that now everybody is using, or everybody has access to rather, and you show that this is what we can do with it, nobody else is doing it, now these people who have not had a page that will show them how to be successful in nighttime urban photography with a smartphone, now they have someone to go to. So they go to you, they start watching your content, and this is something that a book called Crossing the Chasm refers to as your early adopters. These are the people that are going to like your stuff and start watching you just on the proof of concept alone. And that's what this group is, these early adopters. And so once they start picking it up and they start liking it, they're going to go tell their other photography friends, and they're going to be sharing you on social media. And the people who are using DSLRs, the people who are, using professional cameras are going to start to see you. And maybe at first they're like, look, I use a DSLR. I don't need to go watch some person taking pictures on their phone at night. But eventually, if your content's really good and you keep putting it out and your early adopters continue to love you and to share that, which they will, then next thing you know, these, pragmatists, the second group, it's called your early majority, your pragmatists. We're referring to these as like the people with the DSLRs and the professional cameras. They're going to start to pick it up and say, well, hey, this guy's actually doing some pretty awesome stuff. I kind of want to check this out. This is something that I think could be really cool and something that maybe I can give it a try, even if I end up using my own camera. And also, I'm into photography and he's, he or she is doing it in a different way. So let me go ahead and check this person out. And next thing you know, your early majority, your pragmatists start picking you up. And now they start sharing it with a whole bunch of people, like the people who are waiting for it to be the standard, then the conservatives behind them, the people like these late adopters, stuff like that. They're going to start to pick it up as well. And next thing you know, you start to grow up to the level of people like Peter McKinnon with millions of followers because you were never in direct competition with him. You were in the same genre, but your niche was completely different. So basically this whole concept here is you niched down within the genre that you wish to produce content. And now you're at this wonderful position, right? Because you started to gain followers. You have a loyal follower and following base at this point. So now you have the right to then go out and produce more content that branches out a little bit because you have people that are using DSLRs. You have people that are maybe into aerial drone photography, for example. All these people are now existing on your page, and you have the right to go and produce content from them as well. Now, that being said, I don't think it would be smart to ever get away from the initial insight of your brand, the initial thing that you started on, which was always nighttime urban photography on a smartphone. That needs to be a staple, a cornerstone, if you will. But now you have more people who are into different things, and you can make content that's related for them as well. So it allows you now to produce what it is you want to produce as a content creator, as a social media brand owner, for example, because you now have the credibility that comes with being a standard in the marketplace. Like a real easy way to look at this is look at someone like J.K. Rowling, right? She could now write any book and people would buy it because it's J.K. Rowling. But what she did was she fulfilled the need for everyone that wanted and even dare say needed Harry Potter at the time. So now she can write everything because of who she is. She's a standard. She's gained that right. And essentially that's what you will do by gaining that standard level of acceptance across the photography field. And the only reason you were able to get that was because you started with the untapped market. You started with these people that wanted these nighttime urban photography videos on a smartphone. No one was doing it. No one was providing for them. You provided for them. You were smart enough to see that was a market that was not yet tapped. You used that to grow your page. Now that your page has become the standard because people have adopted you, and I highly do recommend reading that Crossing the Chasm. It'll be linked on the blog post if you want to go check it out. Go ahead, because that book is going to talk to you about the different rates at which these people are going to come and start following and adopting and using your product, or in our case, the content that we are putting out into the world. So now that all that's happened, you've now become this standard, and you can begin to produce what you want because you fulfilled that untapped need in the photography market, rather than just competing with all these people who have millions of subscribers. I'm a big believer in this. I think it has worked for some of the biggest businesses of our time, publicly traded companies. It has worked for them. There's no reason that it can't work for social media accounts. And maybe you're thinking, I already have a social media account made. I can't just change everything now. I can't just, basically adjust and change everything that I'm doing, right? Well, here's the thing. Maybe it's not so much changing what you're doing, but as much as it is changing who you're marketing to. Because honestly, I don't want you to change your product. If you're already doing something, I don't want you to iterate on your product. That's more on that podcast, that Starting Greatness podcast. I talk about that in there. Again, please listen to it. It's great. But you don't want to change your product because then you're going to lose. We talked about the initial insight of your brand. You want to simply just find the people who need what it is that you're producing, and maybe iterate on what you're producing slightly to better fulfill the need. So you're not really changing what you're doing. You're still a photography page. You're just now going to go ahead and specialize in something else. You're still a doctor. You're just getting your specialization in a certain type of practice, right? So it all comes back down to specializing, to niching down to fulfill the need of the market that is not yet tapped. Product market fit. That's basically the definition of it right there. And I do think it's going to do a lot for people to help them grow on social media. And I look forward to seeing how it helps the Growing AU brand grow on social media and some of the other accounts that I'm working on at this moment as well. So I hope you found some value in this video. I do highly believe in this product market fit idea. Give it a shot. Try it out. See what happens. At the very least, you just produce some more and different content. And I think there's nothing that is negatively going to come from product market fit. It's simply going to allow you to essentially take a look at what people want and find a way to deliver what people want to see. Because you can be creating the best content in the world, but if nobody wants to look at it, it really doesn't matter. And finally, the last thing I want to say here is if you're worried that for whatever reason the market that you're trying to tap into isn't big enough, I want you to remember something that someone named Kevin Kelly stated, and that's you only need 1,000 true fans to be successful. Think about that a little bit. You only need 1,000 people to really love what you're doing to be successful. I'm sure the market that you're looking into has at least that, if not more. So don't let it worry you. Don't worry about the numbers right now. Just worry about fulfilling the need, and the numbers will come. This has been the All About How podcast with John Knott from growingau.com. I hope hope you enjoyed. I hope you found some value. Go ahead and drop us a like if you enjoyed it, and if you really liked it, go ahead and give us a share. We'll really appreciate it. Hey, this has been day one of the 365-day podcasting experiment. We hope to see you back here tomorrow and all the 364 days we have left. Love having you guys here today. It was great talking to you. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. This has been growingau.com. Have a very highly successful day.